gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
This is the Early Bird Special right here on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield. And as we do every Wednesday right here on the show, we talk BC Renegades football with our guys, Kenny, Calvin, Rob Chavez. Gentlemen, how are we?
I'd be better after a win, but I'm doing okay.
Well, I mean, again, having watched the game on Saturday, at least to me, the defense looked tough. We held in there for the most part. There were just a handful of mistakes, obviously, at the end of the first half and towards the end of the game that really just unfortunately led to this loss. But what did you guys see that I probably didn't?
I mean, we started the game with mistakes. The first touch ends up being a turnover, and it's so frustrating based on the fact that, you know, Rob and I talked about it in the booth. All week, all you had to hear from coaches was ball security, ball protection, you know, not turning the ball over. Winning the turnover battle was my weekly theme. And you turn over the first kickoff return and put your offense in a hole. You know, definitely a tough way to start. But, you know, there was definitely some highlights from a defensive perspective. Always exciting for me because I get to brag on how important the defense is to the overall scheme of things. But definitely frustrating based on the fact that we harp on the turnover battle and we came out just putting the ball on the ground.
So playing these big teams, these top 10 teams in California, especially in JUCO ball, how do you think that really makes BC, at least the program, look going forward? Obviously, we're competing with these guys on a weekly basis, and even though we come up short sometimes, they obviously do enough to impress some of these guys to come in, right?
I mean, 100%. And Golden West is going to be in our conference for the next few years. I mean, you'll notice that conferences change every 4 to 5 years. I know this is the first time there's been a real big major shakeup since I've been covering the team. But you know, at teams like Ventura, teams like Golden West are going to always want to put Bakersfield College on the schedule for a couple of different reasons. Number one, they are a great litmus test of what they're going to be for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we brag a lot about our stadium, but it's amazing. And I know our opponents really do appreciate the facilities that are there. And it used to just be the playing surface now, but Kenny and I have had a chance to walk through the rack, and that thing is amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, and I walked. My son and I were watching the YouTube guy that's, you know, always out, you know, doing flag football and whatever. I can't even really think of his name, but he was at Alabama's facility, and Alabama's facility was fantastic. Mm. And then I'm thinking to myself, you know, BC's basically has like a mini version of what we see there. So, I mean, they're always going to have these opponents. And if you want to take one thing away from it, as far as how you've performed against what are now the number 3 and number 4 ranked teams in the state, you had an opportunity to beat both of them. And there was even whoever wrote the recap for last week's game even had to put it out there. Like, if you're looking at this recap and looking at the stats, you're trying to figure out how the Renegades didn't win this game. Mm. You know? And so are these teams going to be scared of playing a Bakersfield College team? I don't think so. For some of the teams that are in our conference, I know that they have a healthy fear. If these coaches are really looking into the stats like we do, they come into every game against BC thinking these guys are probably going to slow us down. Right. So we've got to figure out how to slow them down enough or take the ball away because they're prone to put it on the ground. That's why I've got my football right here. I'm like the movie The Program. I'm gonna walk around with this thing all day
right now.
I'm
Yes.
gonna tell you right now, you need to start teaching Derrick Henry to run like that too, because he keeps dropping that ball. He's not gonna have a job very much longer.
Right. And on that same point about, how we feel after we lose those kind of games. I mean, one thing teams know is that we're not going to be a pushover and a cakewalk when you come to play us. Defensively, we talked about it was probably one of the best defensive performances we've ever seen.
Right. 100%.
From a standpoint of stopping a high octane offense, like in the first half, they had 67 total yards. And we were still down. So it was one of those things that it continues to frustrate you because it's a simple mantra of just protecting the football can put you in a position to win. And when you don't do that, it just turns into a loss.
Absolutely. But let's walk away from this. Let's walk away from this game and this loss. Let's talk about what's coming up with Pasadena City. What do you guys see from them coming forward?
Well, Pasadena City appears to be a pass-heavy team. They don't have a whole lot of running backs that stand out. I believe their leading rusher has about 130 yards through 4 games. That's not a whole lot, right?
Right.
Maybe 25 to 30 yards a game. But, Pasadena appears to be a shotgun spread team that's going to try to throw the ball around. They're 2-2 as well. They've had a game where they've put up at 62 points as well. So they're an offense that's going to have some athletes that can get around and try to stretch the ball downfield. I'm excited to see how we bounce back. That's really all I can say after, you lose 2 games in a row in the fashion that we lost. It's going to be very interesting to see how this young team and a young leader and Coach Thompson bounces back.
100%. I agree with you. What defensively do you think needs to happen to continue this great trend that we saw last week, though? Like, does anybody need to step up and be that guy as a leader to just keep it rolling?
No, and that's the thing, man. One of the things that I saw that resonated with me at the end of the game, I'm going to tell you guys, it was very emotional for me. Because here I am, I'm down in the dumps, and I'm feeling all bad because we just lost. And I look downstairs, and I see a couple of great men leaving the press box. The first one was Mackey, who's, he's helping with the secondary. And the second one was Coach Jeff Chudy. And it was a realization that, wow, why am I surprised our defense is playing so great? We have one of the greatest defensive minds coming out of retirement to join the staff, and that's why it looks like we're not missing a beat. I have nothing to say in a negative way from a defensive perspective other than we have to try to find a way to create turnovers. And that was something that Coach Thompson said last week. If we're turning the ball over 5 times, the defense has to turn the other team over 7 times.
Right.
Like, we have to find a way to make sure that we're doing the best we can to have impact plays on defense that turn into scores. And, and a lot of people hear commentators and us radio personalities, and they're saying, you guys are just talking, easier said than done. No, done easier than said, because I've did it. You go out there and you take the football and you give it to the offense and put them in scoring position. It can be done. You just have to have that mentality. It's just like the peanut punch, right? There was a play in the game, and Rob and I watched this play where the running back from the previous game carried 9 BC Renegades for about 11 yards after contact. That would never happen in our day, because you are not going to get away with this football carrying 2 or 3 guys. We're going to be punching that out. You're going to lose an arm before we allow you to do that. And I think it's the mentality thing that we have to continue to have if our offense isn't doing well. And I think we can do that against Pasadena.
How do you clean up the turnovers on offense? I mean, you guys had one late in the first half that really just, in my opinion, kind of stalled out what could have been a great offensive day. What do you kind of do as a coach to combat that and tell these guys we just need to clean it up?
I think overall on the offense, and this is something that comes from a conversation that I had with coaches and a couple of players this week, in that we felt like on the broadcast, we don't see the type of energy and the type of leadership on offense that you see on defense. And I had a chance to go back and take a look at some of the parts of the broadcast and pick out a few of the plays. And when we got a 3-and-out to get us the ball back again with about 40 something seconds to go. What I didn't notice this when on the broadcast, but I seen it afterwards when I rewatched it. But I seen a guy in Mario Rivas, a defensive tackle, go over to the offensive line when we're in pump formation to be able to receive the punt. And he's the one screaming and yelling at all the offensive linemen. He's telling them right in their face what they need to do for the next 40-something seconds. And so when I seen that, I immediately messaged a couple of players on the offensive side of the ball, and I said, take a look back at this. What we need is a leader. And what we need is a couple of leaders. The coaches even said, on the offensive side of the ball, the big difference that we've had over the last couple of years is we had offensive leaders. Whether it was last year, Mekhi Smith, Jalen Richmond, Jalen Hankins, these kind of guys. And on top of that, the year before that, when you had some other big play guys on offense, they were the ones that were on the sideline pumping their teams. And they were the ones that knew that they were putting a sense of, hey, don't just think you're letting yourself down when you put the ball on the ground. You're letting the entire team down. And so I got some commitment, and I know our guy Big Journey, if he listens or he watches or something like that, he's gonna say, yeah, me and the running back room, we're the guys that came in with a lot of hype, and we're the ones putting the ball on the ground. So we're gonna need to be the ones that make the difference this week and turn this thing around. And I have a feeling that this offense is going to take a lot of frustration out on Pasadena. Pasadena is a decent defense. They're actually a better defense than both Ventura and Golden West. But at the same time, their offense usually, like Kenny was saying, very quick strike. So they get off the field pretty fast, which means it gives us the ball really fast, more time of possession for us to be able to do some damage. And really what I've said, Kenny said, I think is happening in the coaching room as well too, what the public is asking for. Look, we know we've got two great quarterbacks, but we need to find one guy. We need to find that guy to be able to be the one that leads as well too. And we've had that the last couple of years. Carson did it 2 years ago. Malachi did it last year. Let's figure out which one is going to be the one that leads our offense. Stick with them, and let's see where it goes.
And a final question for me, and then we'll wrap this up and let you guys get out of here because I know you're super busy. But talk about how important it is to win this game and avoid the 3-game losing streak. I know obviously you can lose 2 games in a row and kind of bounce back and still say, okay, whatever, we had a short part of the season that we don't want to talk about anymore. But talk about the difference between potentially losing this 3rd game and starting with this obviously going downhill and potentially going 3-2 rather, and actually pulling yourself out of this hole.
But I'm glad you went there because, it's very important to talk about from a standpoint of fans are selfish.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair.
Fans are selfish. The couch quarterbacks are waiting in the wings to try to condemn coaching changes and figure out why we look the same as we did 4 years ago. Like there's always someone waiting in the wings. So, one thing I always tell my players, as a former coach is, hey, you guys have to accept every sentence and tagline of criticism that comes with the L's, because if you want people to support you and celebrate you, you have to put in the work and execute. And this is one of the things that I said during the game, especially in regards to some of the turnovers from the younger guys. Younger guys want the ball. They say they want the ball, right. And then when you finally get an opportunity, I would hate to single guys out, but we had a young receiver in Spears. He had moments where he was actually getting some reps, and we know what he can do down the field as far as stretching the field with his speed. And he had a catch that was an amazing catch, and he's trying to go for extra yards, and he fumbles, and it turns into a situation where that was really the last one that sealed the deal. You have to have the internal desire to create the life you want as a player. And it starts by doing the simple things. And that's how we get through these kind of losses. You have to have the internal desire for success as a player to make sure that you're supporting your coaches, because some of these turnovers turn into jobs lost, right? And not saying that it's going to happen with Coach Thompson, but the sad thing about it is we as coaches want to put that same kind of accountability on players so they understand how important their role is every snap and every opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And coaches come in with a mission every year, and it's the same. Any successful program always has their team goals at the beginning of the year. You know, it's win conference, make the playoffs, win a state championship. That's really what it is. They can still win a conference championship, but in talking to the coaches, they understand what's at stake. They know that from this point on, for the most part, they got to run the table, and it starts with every single week. So right now their focus is Pasadena, and at this point they feel like there's no wiggle room whatsoever for dropping a game. And I think they do want to make their mark. They want to make sure that from this point on, they know that every team is essentially a chance to continue to build momentum towards the end of the season and get right by the time they're at the end of the season and they're hopefully in the playoffs. They're going to be just fine. But that is the reality right now, is that they're in a situation where they don't feel like they can lose any games going forward.
Absolutely, especially going into homecoming week. Like, we have a bye and then we come off and then we're going into homecoming week. Huge celebration, and we're trying to sell tickets. We're trying to sell tickets to the dinner. You know, people are way more enthused to come and support a team that's on the winning side.
Right.
As opposed to the opposite. You don't want a dead homecoming because you're going in at 2-3, right?
Right.
Or a dead Hall of Fame.
That's
or a dead Hall of Fame with no table sold, because, you know, people just aren't excited about what's happening. And that's one of the things that I was begging for this past Saturday, and I hate to keep going back in the past, is that, hey, we announced that we have a free stadium, you know, entry, and the defense is balling out every play. Offense, what are we going to do to bring some excitement? That's what we need to do in this upcoming week. We need an offensive show out of our guys in that unit.
Absolutely. And I think you're going to get it. Obviously, teams that are great find a way to bounce back after these rough losses. And you went up against two really tough teams back to back. And both of them you took to the wire. So I personally believe the BC Renegades are fine. I don't even know if we need to move on from the two quarterback system, to be honest with you. I think it works to a point. But I do see what Rob's talking about. Obviously, teams do better when you have a singular leader, and when you really find somebody to run the offense well, that's what you want to lean on. But, guys, we have run
and they also need a great kicker. Carlos Villa.
Absolutely.
Perfect on the season still. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the Instagram post that they had on 23 ABC that they did on him, they proclaimed him as being the best kicker in the state. He's number 4 in points. He's one of 2 perfect kickers to have over, I think, 5 or 6 different kicks perfect for the year. And the guy's got a part-time job at McDonald's.
Dang.
Way to end on a high note.
Look
Carlos
at that.
Villa, MVP.
Eat your heart out, Pat McAfee. I'm telling you right now, someone needs to make a phone call. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time as always. We'll talk to you guys next week. Good luck against Pasadena.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, love you guys.
Let's take a break.